Hello Facebookers, getting ready to record the latest edition of our PRWeek podcast. I'm Steve Barrett, Editorial Director of PRWeek, and I've got Thomas Moore with me as my co-host this week. Hello Thomas.
Hello.
It's the first, isn't it?
Well, for you, my second time co-hosting.
Yeah, it's the first time I've co-hosted.
Bradley before,
yeah.
With you first.
So I'm very much looking forward to this. No pressure, but I expect this to be a good one.
I'm completely relaxed.
I know. Yeah, and we've got Ted Kirkhahn, who's president of Hot Paper Lantern, with us. Hey Ted, how are you?
Hey Steve, good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, good to have you on. Looking forward to finding out about the agency. Yeah, so please like us. Please distribute the podcast on Facebook. Please make comments. As usual, I have a cough. Regular weekly viewers or listeners will know all about this, and it's back, so sorry about that ahead of time. And put some questions in, try and be nice, try not to troll, and we're going to get going very shortly. Hello and welcome to the PRWeek, PRWeek's regular weekly roundup of everything that matters in the worlds of PR and communications. My name's Steve Barrett. I'm the editorial director of PRWeek. Going to guide you gently through our weekly podcast with a little bit of a difference this week. I've got a different co-host. It's Thomas Moore, who's a senior reporter at PRWeek. Thomas, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well, Steve. Thank you so much for having me.
It's so nice to be co-presenting with you for the first time. I sit across you in the office, and it's a great pleasure to interact with you on a daily basis, and I'm loving the opportunity to do it in public.
Well, thank you so much.
And we have a brilliant guest this week, Ted Kirkhahn, who's president of Hot Paper Lantern. Ted, welcome to the podcast.
Steve, Thomas, thanks for having me. It's good to be sandwiched in between the two of you.
Well, yes, painting a word picture there for our podcast listeners, indeed. We're on Facebook Live as well, so they can be clear nothing untoward is going on. But yeah, we're going to chat to Ted. Hot Paper Lantern launched in October, spun out of Peppercom, so looking forward to finding out about that. Then we're going to talk big news stories, of which there were many. PRWeek news team was on fire on Tuesday, weren't they, Thomas?
Yes, we were.
Yeah,
Zeno
stories. Winning State Farm, a We acquisition, Stuart Smith leaving Ogilvy, and loads of other great stuff. And we're also going to talk about this whole Gillette new advert that's been tearing up social media. Everyone's got a view on that. The iteration of the best a man can get sort of brand positioning. Really interesting stuff. But we're going to start with Ted. So Ted, tell us how Hot Paper Lantern came about. You spun out of Peppercom, yourself and Ed Mode. Tell us how that happened. You know, what were the things that led up to that?
Sure. I mean, really the best way to talk about what it is we're doing is talk about starting out with why we did it. And we're seeing a really interesting development among a lot of our clients. Everyone is going through a significant amount of business transformation, which is driven in large part by the adoption of digital technologies, right? We hear it all the time, artificial intelligence, blockchain. These companies are redesigning everything from the front to the back office. So they're redesigning their operations, they're redesigning their go-to-market strategies. In some cases, they're even redesigning their business model altogether and going after new markets. And what we're noticing and have noticed over the past 18 to 24 months is that puts a lot of pressure on the brand. And in two major ways. One is the brand is struggling to really communicate what the transformation is all about, starting first with employees and then extending externally out to customers, partners, etc. Really explaining what the impact of the transformation is on those audiences and why it matters to them. Secondly, the business transformation is enabling the company to become more innovative, to become more progressive in nature, again, through, in large part, the adoption of a lot of those digital technologies. But in many cases, the brand is playing catch-up. And they are not operating with the sophistication level that's necessary across a lot of the digital platforms that are now at their disposal. So that's really where we come in those two areas, is helping companies that go through or are going through significant amounts of change and transformation. Now, I will say there are many periods in history where companies have gone through significant amounts of transformation. but the pace at which it's happening now is arguably faster than ever before.
Certainly
And
is.
that's creating a lot of strain on the brand, and that gap between the evolution of the business model and the evolution of the brand. And we try to fill that gap for a lot of our clients.
So clearly you guys, Ed and yourself, worked together at Peppercom for many years. Why did you feel you needed to set up a new agency to deal with those challenges? What was the sort of driving force behind that and leaving Peppercom?
I think it's about specialization, and I do think given the size that we are in that sort of small to mid-sized category, it is a lot easier to drive value and provide value to clients and to, quite frankly, grow the agency if you start to specialize in specific areas that really address a fundamental business problem. So we don't want to be in the business of providing an array of communication services. That, to us, isn't necessarily providing the value that is going to generate the long-term sticky relationships that we have with a lot of our clients. We're really trying to get at the heart of the business challenge as it relates to that transformation that I was talking about, and apply very tailored solutions, marketing communication solutions, to those problems. So to do that, the model we've built out is really focused on three key areas. One is around consulting, like really making sure we have the right talent and skill set at the agency to consult with companies and the CXO level on what is happening within that transformation, and then studying the impact of that transformation on the brand. The second part of it is really about how do we develop the right brand strategy and the right campaigns that are integrated across multiple channels that really target the audiences that matter most. Again, as I said earlier, starting with internal and with employees who quite frankly are the most important audience as it relates to transformation, because they're the ones being tasked with carrying out the change. So we need to make sure, our clients need to make sure that they understand what that transformation is, how it impacts them. Those employees need to be given the right tools, the right platforms on which to operate, and that's in large part where we're operating. And externally, with audiences, customers, partners, et cetera, really truly understanding not just what they need and what their perceptions of that company or that brand is, but what are the best and most effective ways to reach them. And then the third and final part of it is around technology. Two areas with this, Steve. One is around helping clients unlock value in the marketing technology investments that they've made to date. So whether that's a CRM system, a learning and development platform, often we find they're using maybe 20-30% of that overall platform. We're coming in and helping them unlock the value in that so that they can get more bang for their buck and see more ROI.
So presumably you couldn't do this at Peppercom.
Well, we've established as part of Hot Paper Lantern a number of partnerships with technology companies. And the second part of our technology offering is around actually developing unique technology solutions to address specific problems within or challenges within the marketing communications function. So I'll give you a quick example.
Well, I'm not getting the answer to my question.
As far as?
Why you felt you needed to set up a separate agency to do that?
I think it was a fundamental difference of opinion on where we wanted the agency to go. And we felt as though it was better to create specialization under two different brands versus trying to do it all under one roof. I mean, that's really the simplest way to explain it.
Sure. And you're in the same building, but I think you're on one floor, Peppercom's
Correct.
on another, and you've got 50 people have gone with Hot Paper Lantern, and Peppercom operates as a separate
Correct.
agency. Are you guys completely separate now? So there's
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, there's some back office sharing of things from a cost efficiency standpoint, but we operate day to day separate from each other and have a unique set of clients from them, and are operating, in a different set of services and solutions.
And where did the name come from? Hot Paper Lantern. It's an unusual name.
I'm glad you asked. So Hot Paper Lantern is actually the name of one of the world's hottest habanero chili peppers. So we wanted to show the heritage and the legacy. There is a pepper. So I mean, listen,
connection.
I spent 19 years at Peppercom. Ed obviously co-founded the firm. It means a lot to us, and we did a lot of great work there, and we wanted to show the marketplace that this was not a complete departure, but just an evolution of sorts. So we wanted to show that connection to the Peppercom heritage.
And do you describe yourself how would you describe the firm? Is it a PR firm? I mean, what's the sort of boilerplate?
Well, because we're, as I was talking about, because we're in consulting, because we're the development and activation of brand marketing, communications campaigns, and because now we're in technology, it's hard to pinpoint us. We are not a PR firm, although we do a lot of public relations work as part of the overall mix that we're doing for clients. So, we are consulting led. We really truly believe that that the consulting piece is absolutely critical to getting the campaign and the solution right. And that's why we're in a position where we really try to take on clients that are the right fit for us. We're not involved in a lot of RFPs at this point, and that's a strategic move on our part. We're really trying to work with clients that are in that transformation stage and really need that help. And it's been rewarding because they see the value in it, and they see the connection that what we do for them, they see the connection on the impact of the business. And it's not just a bunch of services that we're providing, but it's really truly addressing an acute business need that they have at this time.
And did you bring some clients over with you?
Absolutely, yeah. We brought a significant amount, in large part because of the type of work we were doing for them. Really fit under this model very well. And we have been doing this as part of Peppercom. Previously, we had this model internally. So, I tell everyone, yes, we are a new brand, but we're not a startup. We're a fully profitable 50 plus people on day one with great clients doing some phenomenal work. And that's a unique situation to be in. With that said, the fun part is really being able to launch and develop a new brand and tell a story that we feel is unique and the right fit for the right time.
Sure. And you mentioned that you don't do many RFPs. How do you get your business then? What's the most efficient way to get business and get in front of people? And who are the clients? Are they chief communications officers, or are they chief information officers or marketers? Where are you playing?
We are playing in chief communications officers, chief marketing officers, and increasingly with HR, especially on the internal communications side, especially when it comes to helping them develop technology solutions and content for learning and development purposes. So those three functional areas are the primary targets that we go after. A lot of our business comes through content that we produce. We believe very strongly in content marketing to showcase our expertise, our thought leadership, the value that we hopefully are providing to our clients, and that opens up a lot of doors for us. In addition to a lot of the traditional ways that agencies network and market themselves.
Sure.
Today.
Sounds good. Have you got any new client any new client wins you can tell us about, or good news stories, or are they in typical PR fashion confidential and can't be spoken about?
I know I'm going to disappoint you when I say they're confidential and can't be spoken about, but I will say this. When we launched and started to tell the marketplace about what we were doing, we saw an immediate bump in organic growth from the existing client base that we have. And that was in large part because they started to see the depth and breadth of what we had to offer, in addition to some of the more traditional services that we were providing. And so that was a great validation for us initially out of the gates to get that type of reaction and to also have it hit the bottom line like it did. And then we're doing a lot of work with a lot of global brands in financial services. Industrial manufacturing is a big sector for us. That sector is going through massive amounts of transformation, and they're recognizing the importance of brand. In some cases for the first time ever, so they need a lot of help getting up to speed there, as well as in pharma, especially on the learning and development side. We do a lot of work.
And
there.
Okay, finally, you're the president, and Ed, what's Ed's
CEO?
So Ed's CEO. So who does what? Who tackles which parts of the management?
So as CEO, Ed is obviously overseeing the organization as a whole and everything you expect the CEO to do. My day-to-day focus is first and foremost working on a lot of client bids. So that is one of the things we made sure of when we created this model, is that senior leadership and really that VP level is going to be involved in client service day in, day out. Now, we may sacrifice some growth because of that, because we're so immersed in the business, but that's also why we keep our clients for as long as we do. But I'm also, outside of client service, I'm focused on the business development and marketing of the HPL brand. so that we can, we have a job to do. We have to raise awareness of who we are. So I appreciate you having me on this podcast.
It's our pleasure.
I know the millions of people listening are gonna.
We're breaking the internet as we speak. Yeah, well, we wish you well with it, Ted. Interesting positioning, and it'd be good to see how you do in 2019.
Thank you.
Let's bring in Thomas Moore, who's
Thank
going to talk about the news stories. Bane of your life, that, isn't it? Agencies not being able to reveal their new business wins.
Yes. They certainly want to sometimes get credit for the things they are doing without actually telling us what they're doing.
Yes, but enough of your personal pain.
Yeah.
Stuart Smith, who led the global CEO function at Ogilvy, has gone client side. Really interesting move for Stuart. He's gone to work for a new food company called Vegelutionary Foods, which is best known for cauliflower. Tell us a bit more about that.
Well, Stuart had been at WPP for about 9 years, 4 of them leading the agency's global PR function, and he actually had moved to the U.S. from London in 2014 to take that role. And it was an interesting twist not long ago. The firm had decided to disband Ogilvy PR as a specific.
Well, they disbanded all their disciplines, and so they went to market as one Ogilvy rather than Ogilvy and Mather or Ogilvy PR or Ogilvy One. So interesting.
Yeah, but interestingly enough, though, they still report numbers as PR as.
Yeah, WPP has a bucket called PR and Public Affairs, and for now, Ogilvy has to report numbers the way WPP wants them to. So I actually spoke to John Seifert at Ogilvy, who's the CEO there, and he said, well, that's continuing for the moment, but the jury's still out on what Mark Reed is going to do on a lot of those things, and he may actually change that. So they may not continue in exactly that fashion, but they do for the moment, for sure.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, too, is John is going to be the person that takes over the role for Stuart until they figure out a new
in the very short term.
Yeah. They ought to have someone by the end of the first quarter.
He says so. He's going to convene 12 PR leaders in San Francisco in a couple of weeks to hash out what happens next. And Stuart is going to be CMO at Vegelutionary Foods.
That's right.
And an exciting challenge. Interesting story this, I got to be honest, because a lot of people, when I wrote the story, asked why I didn't mention in the story that Stuart was going to work for his wife. And it really brought up an interesting question for me because I'm okay to mention this because it's in the open that he's working for his wife, and John Seifert mentioned it, funnily enough, in the first line of his statement about Stuart. But I wondered whether if it was a woman going to work for their husband, whether people would ask the same questions. And actually it kind of feeds into our later discussion about Gillette.
Yeah.
And people tend to be slightly dismissive about things like that. And I don't think they realise that this company is an incredible success story, this startup, and it's only been going 18 months, and it's already up to $50 million in revenues. Well, it's revolutionising the sort of health pizza category.
And that reverse take on the women-male relationship plays itself out in many ways in life, doesn't it?
Well, we haven't got enough time to discuss all that, Thomas, but it was an interesting one. I got 4 or 5 emails from people saying, you do know they're married, don't you? I said, yeah. So, I don't know, you got a view on that, Ted? It was an interesting thing.
In today's day and age, I'm surprised that you got some feedback like that, but I'm sort of with you, Steve. I don't really understand the reaction there.
And actually, we'll talk about this about Gillette. You get a different reaction in the UK than you do in the US. The UK's guys seem to be a bit more fundamentalist, shall we say, and a little bit more piqued by this Gillette campaign than people in the US.
A particular UK person,
Piers Morgan,
very, very outspoken, so he's leading a boycott of Gillette. And just, I'm sure all of our listeners are aware of what happened earlier in the week. Gillette released a new video and sort of an update to the best a man can get.
Well, let's get into that one. Might as well. It follows on quite nicely. So carry on.
So anyways, though, as many people obviously know, they repositioned it from a best a man could get into the best a man can be. And the video showed a montage of incredibly poor male behavior. The ad was made by Gray New York, and the social and digital was handled by Ketchum. Posted to Twitter on Monday, and the tweet just blew up. It was shared over 167,000 times, and the video in the post was viewed 19.7 million times by Wednesday. Who knows where it's at right now? Similar dramatic numbers on YouTube. Very, very strong reaction, like you said, from people, especially in the UK and Piers Morgan. PRWeek did a story on reaction of PR people who, in general, agreed with the message and thought, though, that the delivery might have been a bit clunky, a bit cheesy, coming as it does after. And you have to admit there's been many commercials and portrayals of male behavior as clueless and stereotypical. So maybe that could have been handled better, but the point still needs to be made. Obviously, people are still behaving in poor ways. Men are, and there's been an amazing social movement over the last years.
Many layers to this story.
Yeah,
I mean,
really
some
is.
might say that if Piers Morgan is against you, then you're doing something right. And certainly he got drummed out of the US pretty quickly.
I think that the fundamental question is, and I read your story, and I in large part agree with what a lot of the folks were saying in it. But the fundamental question is there. Is this just an attempt by Gillette to drive up impressions of the brand, or is there real meat behind it? And I think if there's real meat behind it and they're able to actually affect change on this issue, then I'm all for it. I'm not close enough to know what comes next for them beyond this one video, but I would hope that it's not just this video, that they're actually doing it because this is going to drive a CSR campaign for them that's going to hopefully affect real change on the issue.
Yeah, they're certainly donating money to boys' clubs, millions of dollars. So, they are putting some money where their mouths are. It's really all about this thing about brands taking a stand, isn't it? And we've seen lots of brands doing it. A brand like Nike can kind of do it because it's in its DNA, it's always done that, and it made a calculated risk when going in on the Kaepernick issue that it knew it would get some backlash, and it did. But then I think it knew also that it would then come back around, and it did, and actually the share price dropped initially, but then went back up higher, and sales were up, and et cetera, et cetera. Gillette's a different brand, isn't it? It's just kind of that iconic brand that you start shaving with. I've always used Gillette. I can't remember why, but I just have.
Pervasive.
Always have, yeah.
Pervasive.
And the other element to this, which is I've seen the incredible debates online, is how many razors are bought by women for men or for their sons, and how many razors are bought by women for women to use, and of course people start mentioning things like the fact that Gillette used to, I think it still does, it sells razors for women that are pink and happen to cost more than the ones for men, and it's exactly the same product, and they were pointing out that slight hypocrisy. And I've seen images of people at Formula One races with Gillette branding in rather sexist scenarios, and I think over the years you will see, you can always dig out stuff like that on a brand like that.
But you raise a good point, and first and foremost, these brands know exactly what they're doing, right? They have calculated this out. They know the positive reaction they're gonna get. They know the negative reaction they get. I believe this is very calculated. But I think what you have to look at, whether it's Nike or Gillette, is it true to who they are? Is it true to the purpose of the company, of the culture, of the leadership team? I think that aligns, and it makes a lot of sense. If it doesn't, that's where I think you start to get yourself into a lot of trouble potentially. Nike, for sure, I think it made a ton of sense for them. It aligned with their purpose. Gillette, I don't know. It's not as aligned as I've seen with other brands that have taken a stand out there on certain issues.
Yeah, and there's a certain Gillette consumer that maybe it doesn't align with, but maybe they were looking for a newer, younger, hipper audience. My contention would be that a lot of those have beards. Probably don't use Gillette razors, or live in Brooklyn or whatever.
I remember seeing some story about how there was a drop in sales due to that. I can't remember where I saw that because of the increase in beards,
Well, that and the startups that are starting to eat into their market share.
The Dollar Shave Club sort of movement.
Do you really think there's a cynical part of it that knows any amount of controversy is going to generate views in that, or?
I can't comment specifically on Gillette, but generally speaking, I do think there are brands out there that go for the impressions and know that even though there's going to be a certain amount of backlash and negativity around what they're doing, some of that negativity actually doesn't hurt.
Right,
And
the old saw about the only thing worse than bad publicity is no publicity.
To that end, but that even the good publicity or the positive reaction is worth the negative backlash that they get around it. So I'm not I'm not a cynical guy, but I do think in some cases you have brands, because of the way the world is set up, that they know if they do this, if they take this stand, it's just an incredible amount of free publicity.
Actually, we are cynical, me and Thomas. So
It's
our day-to-day, it's our purpose in life. But one thing's for sure, everyone's been talking about Gillette all week. So it's served its purpose on one level. We're going to see the Edelman Trust Barometer coming out on Monday, and that talks, and Richard Edelman has talked a lot about the way brands do need to be taking a stand, and they need to be, especially in this world with so little trust, especially in government and institutions, the business has to take a stand on issues. So, on many levels, maybe, Gillette was doing that. I think the line about maybe the creative was a bit clunky. Maybe that might be true. But it's a fascinating discussion. We'd love to hear what you think. So if you're listening on Facebook, please let us know. If you're listening to the podcast, drop us an email and let us know. Fascinating stuff. A nice win for Zeno, Thomas. They've won the State Farm account.
That's right. They won the State Farm, a long-time Weber Shandwick account. They had it just about 10 years. We broke the story. I might as well plug myself.
Yeah, well
I
done,
broke
Thomas.
the story.
TH
November
Domo.
that the account was up.
TH Domo, as we call him, his
Yes.
Twitter handle, is on fire.
Yeah, and so we found out in November that the account was up for review, and managed to figure out when Zeno got it just the other day. It's an interesting change. Around the same time, Weber had another account that was put up that we think is under review, Experian, and they were a big part of the McCann group that lost out the Army bid. So some bad news. But in preparing for today's broadcast, I went and looked just to remind myself.
Wow, you do preparation for
I
this
try.
stuff? Wow, I'm impressed.
Thank you.
Yeah,
And
you can come again, Thomas.
Well, it wasn't extensive. I looked at last year's PR agency business report, 2018, and not surprisingly, Weber is second. So, I'm sure it's never fun for accounts like this to
it's
move
part
gens,
of,
but
it's part of the fun of working in agencies, isn't it, Ted? You have to deal with the slings and arrows of either one, losing accounts, two, putting your heart and soul into pitching an account and not winning it, and then the joy and the real amazing feeling when you do actually win one or you retain one.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you have to be resilient in this field.
Gotta roll with the punches,
there's no doubt. If you don't have a high level of resiliency, you shouldn't go into this business for sure. I think, for agencies of all sizes, but particularly in the mid-sized category, you have to be very careful about what you pursue and what you decide not to pursue, because you can get down a rabbit hole really quickly chasing, and this is my comment before about RFPs. If an RFP comes to us and it's the right fit and checks a lot of boxes, we'll absolutely go after it, no doubt about it. But oftentimes they don't, and they don't line up, and we know that it's going to be very, very difficult for us to compete because of various reasons. And so you just have to have that filter in place, and you have to stick to it, even though it is so tempting to chase everything. It's sort of the salesperson in you.
Especially when you're launching.
Totally.
Yeah.
But that goes back to my point before about being, yes, we're a brand new agency, new brand, et cetera, but we're not a startup. So it's good to be profitable on day one.
Well, and it's a tremendous amount of work to chase after an RFP, to prepare it. I mean, Weber obviously will have a whole department dedicated to this, but a smaller agency, it's going to suck up a lot of resources. And
You're absolutely right. The big agencies have those dedicated departments. The mid-sized agencies don't. And so that's why you have to be selective. It is an incredible amount of work. And it's not just an incredible amount of work from a standpoint of getting the information sort of out to the prospect. To win, you've got to be creative. You have to be strategic. So you have to do a lot of upfront work to come to the client or the prospect with something that's going to win you the business. If you're not prepared to do that, don't pitch it, because you're not going to win.
Have you any pitch stories? Like I remember I was in agency years ago before I became a journalist, and sometimes you do a pitch and you think, we nailed that, we're going to win that, and you never hear from the client. You do another one and you think, that sucked. Big ones, we haven't got a hope in hell, and then you get the call and say you've won the business. Does that ring true?
It does. It does. I mean, it's not all the time, but we have certainly walked out of pitches thinking, wow, that just didn't go very well, and we got a call saying, "Congrats, you guys are in." What a lot of new business comes down to after you do all that legwork and get the strategy and the creative, it's the chemistry in the room, because to establish a long-term relationship, it's a people business, and clients and agencies want to be seen as sort of like the extended part of the team, and the only way to do that is to go to battle with people that you trust and that you actually want to work with every day. And that's the chemistry check in the room that you absolutely have to have that. And that's in large part what we measure, whether when we walk out of the room, like, was that chemistry there, was it not? But you get fooled sometimes. Sometimes you think the chemistry's there and you don't win the business, and sometimes vice versa.
It is like dating, isn't it? Anyway, last story. We're staying on the agency track. Or formerly Wagner Edstrom, they've bought a content firm. Thomas, tell us all about that.
Yes, we earlier this week bought a content firm called Codeword. They have offices in New York, Salt Lake, and San Francisco, about 75 people. From descriptions I read and people I talked to when I did the story, it's former journalists, and they have a specialization, pardon my stumbling there, they specialize in reaching niche communities, skeptics, sort of really that communication with groups that you need to win over that aren't mass market, but I wouldn't say influencers because it's not really in that space, but I think they do actually do some influencer work as well.
Good, nice to see some journalists doing well for a change.
Yes.
Ted, you noticed an interesting quote in the story that sort of resonated with you.
Yeah, the comment about being a certain size, I think the number was 75 people. And that it was time to start making some decisions of do we go out and get capital and do it ourselves, or do we get acquired? I thought that was interesting. And I don't think that's a hard and fast rule. It certainly hasn't been my experience in the agency world. There are a number of factors that go into play when deciding, do you stay independent or do you sell? And I just don't think that number is really the number to subscribe to necessarily. I think it depends on your growth plans, how fast you want to grow, and also what type of communications business are you in.
Yeah.
And so it makes sense, being a content business. I mean, content's the name of the game today. Agencies need to be in a position where they can develop great content for their clients.
I mean, Peppercorn stayed independent, and I'm sure they got loads of approaches over the years. Do you have a strategy on that at Hot Paper Lantern, sort of moving forward?
We like being independent right now. I mean, there's a lot of upside in what we're doing, and we think the model is really ripe for growth. And not to say that down the road we wouldn't entertain offers, but there's a lot of freedom in that independence, and we can invest where we want to invest in the business, and we can make decisions without having to answer up to a higher being.
Yeah, it sounds good. Looking forward to plotting that, Ted. Thanks for being a guest with us.
Thank
really
you for
enjoyed
having me.
it. Thomas,
yes.
Well done. Always a pleasure to hang out.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
A couple of housekeeping announcements. We'll be in Davos next week for the World Economic Forum. We're going to be reporting from there all week, and we'll be doing our breakfast briefing Davos special. So if you're there, or you've got events, or you've got anything you want to say about Davos, then do ping us, and maybe we'll see you there. I thought I got through this without giving you the benefit of my cough, but sorry about that. It's PRWeek Global Awards. The first deadline is today, so please get your entry in if you haven't already. There's still 2 weeks to get the final deadline, which is the 31st of January, but that will be subject to a late deadline, but do get your best global work in. The ceremony will be in London on May the 21st. Our Brand Film Festival, fantastic joint venture with our sister brand campaign, all the best brand films, and they will be shown at a big gala screening at the Paley Media Centre on the 2nd of May. That'll be in New York. You've got until the 22nd of January, and that is the final deadline, so please do hurry up on that to get your great work in. And don't forget the Oscars of the PR industry, the PRWeek US Awards. Best year ever, I am predicting. Fantastic quality of work. Really says a lot about the industry, and really great case studies to take forward and represent us. And they will be handed out on the 21st of March at Cipriani on Wall Street. That's again in New York City. But that's all we've got time for. We'll see you next time on the PR Week. Frank Washkoop will be hosting, as I'll be in Davos, but I'll be doing some reporting from there. But have a good week, and we'll see you next time.